Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. And we have Craig Emmerich here and his wife, Maria Emmerich. Both are part of keto-maria.com. And Maria had lost over 30 pounds. She reversed her PCOS, her IBS. She regained her health. And now Craig has joined her together, and they are all about keto and feeling good and having your mind and your body and your health just in perfect alignment. So, Craig, welcome.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
So, tell me a little bit more about your wife's story and just how the two of you guys kind of combined to kind of help people take their health to a whole new level.
Yeah, so started out my wife, when we met, she had a number of issues. She had PCOS, she had acid reflux and some other issues. She had extra weight that she had on that she was trying to get rid of, even though she was doing all the, traditional guidelines of low fat and healthy whole grains and running marathons and doing all these things that she was told to do. She still had all this extra weight and all these health issues. And the doctor told her those are the cards you're dealt. And here's some prescriptions to deal with, X, Y, and Z. And so she thought there had to be a better way and started researching for herself to figure out her issues. And then, like a week later, our dog was losing patches of its hair and took it to the vet. And the very first question the vet asked was, "What are you feeding it?" And it was kind of a light bulb moment for her that the doctor never asked her that. Doctor never asked her what she was eating. And so she started researching and getting into it. Went to college for nutrition and exercise physiology, and just a lot of the same stuff was taught. The food pyramid, healthy whole grains, low fat, kind of. And as she's starting to research on her own, she's finding this information about low carb and keto and type of diets. And as she's implementing those things, she's getting better. And even though she stopped running marathons because it was hard on her joints, she lost the extra weight and everything improved. And everybody wanted to know why, what she was doing. And so she started helping other people. And that kind of led to us writing our first book, and using that initially to help fund. It was kind of a fundraiser for our adoption because we needed money to adopt our sons. And so she wrote this book, put all her recipes together, and that was her first cookbook. And 30 some books later, and myself, I was always in the behind the scenes initially because I'm electrical engineering background. And so I was an engineer and I was behind the scenes helping her with her website, helping her, edit and get the books ready and those kind of things. It just came to a point where it made sense to pull away and commit full time to this as well. So the last, I don't know, 16 plus years, I've been studying biochemistry and how the body works.
Wow. Now I know that I've seen tons of pictures with her and Halle Berry, and I know that Halle Berry wrote a foreword in one of the books. So how did the two of them get connected? How did
Oh,
that come about?
yeah, it was interesting. We uh, it's just happened all of a sudden. Somebody's noticed on one of her stories on Instagram. She had her book, and she's diabetic, and she's been following this lifestyle for like 16 years, herself. And so it was a big surprise to us. So we reached out and we sent the rest of our books to her so she could have them all. And before you knew it, she reached out to do a joint cooking thing. This was during COVID. So Maria cooked and she cooked together on Instagram Live. And then they did another follow-up cooking video and then the book forward and everything. So it's been awesome. She's the nicest person and just most down-to-earth person. And she's with her diabetes, she's used low carb to really help with that.
Mm. One of the things that I always talk about is how I feel the best is when I eat kind of keto-ish. I call it keto-ish. I'm not a fan of like extreme keto, but I like to eat a keto-ish diet. And so I want to kind of talk about how, like, if someone wants to be a little bit they want to be keto, but keto-ish.
Yeah.
How would you kind of describe like kind of the day in the life of what you guys do and how you guys decide, like what's the typical day look like of what you're eating, what you're kind of saying, no, I'm not eating this or that.
You know, we really keep it pretty simple for ourselves. I mean, I'm kind of like a dog. I could eat the same thing pretty much every day. But it's real simple if you want it to be. It's just meat and low carb vegetables. Like that's it. It doesn't have to be hard. You could just grill up some meat, whatever it is, fish, chicken, steak, a burger. Just don't put the bun on, don't put it on a bun, just eat it without a bun. Those kind of things. My typical day is probably morning. I have eggs, one way or another. I make eggs, and sometimes Maria will make me one of her waffles, which it's a waffle made with there's beef and chicken, as well as some other things, and it's amazing. That's the thing she's amazing at is she can come up with ingredients and mimic non-compliant or not ingredients that we don't think are as healthy, like uh flour and those kind of things, and mimic
Mm-hmm.
it very, very closely with other ingredients. And so she makes these little waffles, and I put some over easy eggs on them, and I make, sometimes I'll have that. And then in the evening, I'll have usually just a couple of burger patties with cheese on it and some tomato, onion, those kind of things, lettuce, and yeah, that's it. It's pretty simple, really.
Mm. So what are some things, that you kind of really say no to? And what I mean by that, I am right now doing 30 days with no sugar at all, like no fruit, no honey, no anything. I just kind of made that decision that I'm not going to do that. Are you kind of give me some ideas? Like, let's say you're really wanting, something sweet. What would you do? Would you have like a tiny bit of like organic honey, or would you just say, no, I'm not going to have it at all?
Well, ourselves, first of all, I don't really have a sweet tooth, so I'm kind of more that salty, savory kind of thing. So I would grab for something like that. But in general, neither of us, we don't do any grains. So no flour, no rice, no, none of that. And we don't do any added sugar. So I mean, there's sugar in certain things. There's even a little bit of sugar in, meats. There's like liver, especially has some sugar, as well as, um, you look at things like eggs. Eggs have a little bit of sugar in them, 0.6 grams of carbs or something per egg, a little bit of sugar. Other than that, we don't do any added sugars, right? So we don't add, honey, maple syrup, any, no sugars at all in our diet. And we haven't Maria and I both have not done that for her. It's over 20 years. For me, it's, I don't know, 18, 17 years or something. And your body doesn't need that stuff. You don't need you technically do not need carbohydrates in your diet whatsoever. Like your body can make all the carbohydrates your body needs to survive and to thrive. And so you don't need any of that stuff. It doesn't mean you can't have a little, but there's essential fatty acids and there's essential amino acids. So you need protein and fat in the diet. You don't need carbohydrates.
Mm. So let's talk about that as far as how stringent do you get? So as far as, with vegetables, because vegetables have a lot of carbs. And so, do you say, look, I'm going to eat whatever vegetables my body's craving, or am I limiting that as well? What is your idea on that?
We just generally stick with lower carbohydrate vegetables, and there's plenty of options for that. There's broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, lettuce. There's lots of good options there. We just basically stay away from most of the root vegetables, things like potatoes and that kind of thing. They're typically the starchy ones. So we just avoid the starchy vegetables. As far as fruit goes, kind of the same. We'll stay away from the high sugar fruits. Um, and there's a lot of fruits you can have that are pretty low sugar. Everything from tomatoes to olives to avocados, coconuts. Like there's a number of things you can have in the fruit family that's very low. And there's of course things like berries, like strawberries, raspberries, those are pretty low in sugar. Those kind of things.
I don't know about you guys, but I am stressed. And if you're feeling overwhelmed this holiday season, then I get it. With all the family get togethers, it is just a relentless source of stress. But anyway, there is something that I've got called Stress Guardian, and it's actually made by Bioptimizers, the people who make the magnesium breakthrough, which I love, love, love. But anyway, they are literally made this new product. It has 14 adaptogenic herbs and it just regulates your stress. I just actually took some right this second and it's awesome. If you go to stressguardian.com/wasteaway and put in waste away for 10% off your first order, it's stressguardian.com/wasteaway. Go there now.
So I have to tell you, so I made a bet with my son that I wasn't going to have any fruit for the next 30 days. And we actually got displaced from our home because we got evacuated, right, for the Hurricane Milton. So we just got power back. We haven't had power for 8 days, but we had gone to Miami for the last 7 days because we knew we could only handle so much without having power. And we were sitting at the breakfast we were at the Ritz-Carlton and they had this beautiful breakfast. And I got sliced tomatoes and avocado. And we made a really hefty bet. And my son came over and he's like, I just won. He said, you're eating an avocado and you're eating a tomato. Both of those are a fruit. Pay up.
Yeah.
And so we just, we talked about it and I said, no, I'm not counting avocados and I'm not counting tomatoes because, I mean, at some point you can't take everything out of the diet. So let's talk about that. What are some of the things that are like your absolute staples that you say, okay, here's all the things that I really try to focus on in my diet to give people some ideas?
So number one is going to be animal proteins. Animal proteins are not only going to give you the essential amino acids for building and maintaining your muscle, your bones. People don't realize your bones, like osteopenia, osteoporosis, your bones are primarily a matrix of protein filled in with calcium. And so getting enough complete protein is super important for bone health. It's super important for strength and longevity and vitality especially as we get older. And then the other thing with animal proteins is, if I gave you a plate that had a steak on it, and then the other with it were some blueberries and some kale, and I asked you which of those has the most vitamins and minerals, most people probably say kale or maybe the blueberries, right? It's the steak. I made in our keto book, I made a whole chapter on these charts right from the FDA, website, like 13 of the most essential vitamins and minerals. I listed them out, and the steak by itself blows the kale and the blueberries out of the water. There's only like blueberries, there's like one vitamin mineral that is higher in blueberries than in steak. And so you're getting the most vitamins and minerals, one of the most nutrient dense foods you can eat with animal proteins. Plus you're getting all the amino acids to thrive and be strong. And then, the fats that come with it are your energy, your fuel. And so it really has everything you need. So prioritizing protein, I think, is the most important thing for everybody, and especially as you get older, because it's harder to maintain and build muscle as we get older. Next to that, then it's, low carb vegetables. Myself, I eat mostly, of course, in addition to animal proteins, there's eggs in there as well. Those are complete protein as well. But then I'm looking at, things like I do have dairy because I don't find I'm sensitive to it. And we tell most of the people that are trying to lose weight to cut dairy because it will help with weight loss if you cut all dairy out. But I'm not trying to lose weight, so I have dairy like cheese and whatnot, and then I'll have some low carb vegetables. My typical ones are like tomato, onion, like mushrooms, those kind of things.
So one of the things I saw is that you guys had like I saw Halle Berry with your keto mousse. So I want you to talk about, okay, let's just say someone's like, I gotta have some options for
Yeah.
something that tastes sweet. Talk about that Halle Berry keto mousse and maybe any other things that could be treats when you're dying for something sweet.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of again, my wife Maria is amazing with transforming ingredients into something completely different and substituting something that's maybe not as healthy, you know. And so if you look at pudding, you're looking at no, well, let's go back to the original story. So when we adopted our sons, we didn't have a lot of money at the time, and my youngest son, Kai, we knew at the time eggs was one of the cheapest most healthy foods we could get. You know, lots of vitamins, minerals, lots of good protein, and our son Kai wouldn't eat them, no matter what we made. I mean, we tried hard boiled, over easy, scrambled, you name it. He did not like eggs, and she's like, "I'm gonna get eggs in this kid somehow." And so she put them in a blender, and she added some cocoa powder and some sweetener and some coconut milk, and blended it up, and it made the most amazing pudding you've ever had. And it was kind of a recipe we used on our own, but she didn't put it on the website because she thought it was kind of weird. People think it was weird, you know, to use hard-boiled eggs to make pudding. Um, and finally she put it out there and people loved it. And eventually down the road, we ended up making that recipe with Halle Berry. And before we did that video, she's like, Maria, I am not eating egg pudding. And we're just like, just try it. And sure enough, she tried it. She's like, this is the most decadent mousse I've ever had. And you know, that's the kind of thing that she's so great at, is making recipes like that, where it's like you mimic something that you're craving or you love, but made in a way that's just healthier for you. You know, so here you have an egg which has got lots of vitamins and minerals and protein, and you're making that into pudding, right? So now you have pudding that's got lots of vitamins and minerals and protein, and it's just a lot better option.
I love that. Oh my gosh, we have to share the recipe. I'll go ahead and put that in the show notes, or you
Awesome.
guys can go to Keto Marie and you can get that recipe. Anything else, any other options that you have that are kind of like that keto mousse that you have recipes for on your site or that everyone loves?
Everybody loves her bread too. It's a bread made with basically just eggs. So you use egg whites and egg white protein powder. There's a version that uses a little bit of gelatin to give it a nice texture. And that's it. You whip it up, and it makes like a loaf of Wonder Bread, basically. So again, you're just getting a little more protein and everything versus the carbs that are in a traditional bread. There's also, and we can throw that link up there too if you want. And then as far as like treats, she has like literally you name it, everything you can think of converted. I mean, everything from tiramisu to, you know, she's got a flourless chocolate torte recipe that's amazing. And all of these, we only use natural sweeteners. So we use things like allulose, which are a rare earth sugar that they make now in higher amounts. Um, it's all natural. It goes right through you. So it's not like a carbohydrate that spikes your blood sugar. It's just actually passed right through, mostly through your urine, and your body doesn't use it. But it's got actually some GLP-1 like qualities. So GLP-1s are these like Ozempic and these drugs that help you lose weight. They make you satiated more. There have been studies that have shown that allulose has like a little bit of those qualities as well. So it helps with keeping you satiated and that kind of thing.
So let's talk about sweeteners because allulose and stevia are both kind of natural sweeteners that can be used as sugar substitute, but they
Yep.
definitely differ in taste and sweetness. And allulose, I think, has little to no aftertaste. I think stevia is a little bit more sweeter. And the only thing about stevia is I feel like it gives you gas. So do you feel that
Hmm.
way with allulose, or do you also use stevia? Talk about that.
So it all depends on what form it comes in, right? So a lot of times your stevia, if it's a granulated product, it's probably bulked up with another sweetener. could be erythritol or something like that. If it's a concentrate, because pure concentrated stevia is like 200 times or 300 times sweeter than per gram than sugar. So they have to either dilute it or bulk it up with some other sweetener. We use something called stevia glycerate, which is a liquid, and just a couple drops of that is like a a couple teaspoons of sugar. And so you just use a few drops of that and then mix it in. And to me, the one thing about stevia, it can have a little bit of a bitter aftertaste after the sweetness, just a touch. And so the stevia glycerate doesn't really have that, so it's a smoother and no real aftertaste. But as far as the GI effects, generally speaking, stevia typically has less of the gas and stuff issues than like allulose or erythritol. Allulose and erythritol, some people do get gas with that if they get too much of it. And amounts are important, right? A little bit, most people are going to have no issue with. If you kind of overdo it with the sweet treats, you might have some gas or issues. But again, typically it's actually the allulose or erythritol that causes those, but everybody's different. And so you really got to try the different sweeteners and see which one works better for you.
Mm. So talk a little bit about what you guys have as far as what you offer. Do you guys the biggest thing that you guys do you do coaching? Do you do training? Do you offer cookbooks? What's kind of your main thing that you kind of teach people and offer them?
Well, we have a wide gamut of all of it. And we have a blog with thousands of free recipes. And so if you go to ketomaria.com, if you scroll down a little bit, there's the blog, and then there's our website that you can get to. Our blog, it's got thousands of free recipes. We've had people that have lost hundreds of pounds and never paid us a dime. They just followed our YouTube videos. They just followed our recipes on our blog, and they had amazing success. And so you could go all the way from that to, our website, keto-adapted.com, which is a link from Keto Maria too. We sell our ebooks there. We sell services there like coaching, where we have weekly coaching calls with group coaching calls. So everybody gets on a webinar and we answer questions every Sunday and help people along, and lots of support tools. All the way up to Maria still does some occasional one-on-one phone consults with people if they really want that hand-holding and attention. And then, again, back to the books, the ebooks, we have some as cheap as like $9, and then we have our published books, that $20-$25 that you can get the paperbacks to hold. And, there's, I don't know, 30 plus books combined between ebooks and published books.
Guys, I just want to interrupt for just a second, and I want you to hear Paul Saladino talk about why liver is so important. And if you don't like liver, we have another option for you.
Your ancestors were eating liver. And the reason that this sort of wisdom has been passed down is because liver is very nutritious. It's basically nature's multivitamin. If you look at the nutrients in meat, they're great. You've got zinc, you got B6, you got B12, you got some K2. But if you look at liver, it really complements what's in muscle meat. And there are many unique nutrients found in organs, specifically liver as a powerhouse of these, that are difficult to obtain outside of liver. Like meat and organs are like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together. They're supposed to be eaten together. The easiest way to eat liver is just to do it raw. If you don't want to eat liver raw, you can cook it. But the reason that I like to do it raw is because there are unique nutrients in liver that are probably somewhat degraded when you cook the liver.
This really is like the most nutrient-rich supplements that you can find, and they are amazing. I have tried them. I absolutely love them. So just go to heartandsoil.co, use the coupon code Chantel Ray, and save you some money there.
So one of the things I want you to talk about is hidden sugars, because I think that, a lot of times what happens is people are like, okay, I'm not going to have sugar. And so they kind of say, okay, I'm not having chocolate cake. All that stuff is easy. But I want you to talk about things like, let's say I'll give you one and then you expand on it. Ketchup or spaghetti sauce, right? Like sometimes people will be like, oh, I'll just get zucchini noodles with like a meat sauce from, let's say, like an Olive Garden or something, really bad like that. What would you say, like, okay, the amount of sugar that is in that particular meat sauce is kind of uncanny. People don't even realize it. So that's what I want you to kind of talk about, to kind of raise awareness on things that people are like, oh, I'm eating no sugar, I'm eating no sugar. Well, if you actually looked at how much sugar you're eating, it's a massive amount.
Yeah, and I'll expand on that too at the end about sugars and starches. But as far as the hidden sugars, like your example, ketchup, I've seen the thing where like the Heinz ketchup bottle, they emptied it and then filled it with how much sugar is in it, and it's like a third full. Like that's a third sugar that your traditional ketchup has. And so that there, one thing to look for on a label, there's so many names for sugars, but turbino sugar and all these different kind of sugars, but there's also a lot of things like dextrose and maltodextrin and these kind of things that are really just sugars. Anything with the OSE is typically a sugar, like dextrose or polydextrose or those kind of things. And another great example of this is Morton's salt. If you go look at the standard blue Morton salt, if you look at the label, it says salt dextrose. It has sugar in it, in your salt. Why is there sugar in your salt? I don't understand that. So they're putting it in so many things because it's so cheap, and they can just stuff it in, and it adds some flavor and bulks it up, and it makes it cheaper to produce. But it's hidden in everything, and so you really have to be a detective if you really want to get rid of the sugar and cut the sugar down in your diet. You really got to read labels, and that's why, generally speaking, we just tell people count the total carbs and just keep them low, and don't even have to worry about looking at labels. Then just make sure the carbs are low in any product and go with that. But what I was going to bring up about that is sugars and starches. And so a lot of people will go down that path and look for those sugars, but then they'll eat something that doesn't have any sugar listed, but it's got a lot of starch in it. And you can take like a whole wheat bread versus a white bread, and people have done this. The whole wheat bread will actually spike your blood glucose. Or another example of that is white rice versus brown rice. The brown rice spiked blood sugar more than the white rice. And so what happens is those starches, a starch is just a long string of glucose molecules linked together. That's a starch. And what happens as soon as it hits your GI tract, they get broken off into glucose molecules and into the bloodstream. And so it's really just glucose linked. It's just sugar linked together when you're talking about a starch. And so that's the problem some people get into is they'll go to like a gluten-free bread or something made with rice flour, and it's spiking their blood sugar more than the traditional product did. And so that's something you got to be careful with too, is starch is really just sugar.
Yeah, so since I've been doing this 30-day no sugar, I've been like on high alert. And so my son wanted to I wasn't going to eat dinner that night. And so I was fasting. And so he loves Olive Garden, and I'm like very anti-Olive Garden.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I was happening to look at just how much sugar he loves spaghetti with meat sauce. So I just was curious to see how much sugar was in that spaghetti with meat sauce. There was 17 grams of sugar in the spaghetti with meat sauce. And so he's actually, sometimes when he gets grounded, I'll tell him, you're not having sugar. But I don't count like spaghetti with meat sauce, but out of curiosity, I was just looking on it, and it's like, this has so much sugar. So, while I've been looking, it's kind of like things like, you have to be careful with is like yogurts. A lot of yogurts they're just loaded with sugar. Some granolas that you even like a healthy granola that you think about, barbecue sauces, even some of these juices like the green juice that looks super healthy, but there's some naked juices that it looks so healthy. It's a green juice. Just out of curiosity, I looked at one that had apple in it. They call it the green machine. This green machine, I just looked at the back of it. It had 50 grams of sugar for
Oh my
a green drink. And so that's why I'm just really, even like dairy-free milk alternatives, if you look at those, some of those, people are like, oh, I'm being healthy. Some of them have like 13 grams of added sugar in a 1 cup serving.
Yep.
I mean, in almond milk or coconut milk or all
Yeah,
these
you gotta
different
get the
things, or
unsweetened.
canned soup. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, we always got to look for the unsweetened ones for those kind of things. And yeah, honestly, if you look at a grocery store, the outside of the grocery store, where all your meats and vegetables are, that's your safest area. If you go to the middle, the vast majority of that stuff is filled with sugar and starch. It just is. And I mean, you can find certain things, but the vast majority of it is just got sugar and starch, all that processed food. Stick to the outside of the grocery store, meat, vegetables, some low sugar fruits, and you'll do a lot better.
Mm. Well, this has been amazing. Tell listeners where they can find you and where they can follow you.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, just the easiest is keto-maria.com, because we have our website, blog, everything linked there. On the bottom, all of our social media links are there as well. So keto-maria.com.
Awesome. And you guys stay tuned. We've got another episode coming up in just a few. Bye-bye for now.